Maritime, but especially since the link between Italy and Switzerland naturally is dense for quite a long while. We are very happy to have a number of speakers here who will help us out. Stefan, great to see you. You just opened up and I saw your face, so that's why I'm starting with you. But of course, also the others with Jan HOFFMANN, who, as far as I read, also had a little trouble to join in the last minute, but he succeeded too. That's excellent. And with speaker in Geneva, I think we are really on the verge in between the different cultures we're bringing together in here. So very, very happy to have you all here and very much looking forward to the success of our first online meeting with these clubs all united. Thank you very much.
Okay, it's my turn. Umberto Masucci, President of International Propeller Club of Italy. I'm particularly glad that we organized with our Swiss colleague and friends, the three propeller clubs from Basel, from Geneva, and from Lugano, this interesting webinar. We have already done, as Italy, during the COVID-19 lockdown, two webinars, was the one with Turkey and the one with Spain, and they were both very successful. We do believe in Italy that having meetings with other countries and other propeller clubs is very useful for both. In Italy, we have 24 clubs, some 1,400 members, executives of shipping, port and logistic, and we are now back to physical events, as somebody told before, I think Jan HOFFMANN, and we will have a physical event with our convention on the occasion of the EU Maritime Day, which will be held in Ravenna next May 20th. Then we will travel to Hamburg, 23rd and 24th of June, with the Italian mission of Propeller Clubs, where we will meet the Hamburg Maritime Cluster. And late September, we will have the Naples Shipping Week, the 5th edition. All of that we will be informed also through the European coordination of propeller clubs. And I thank very much Mark Shirley for doing that with commitment and passion. And so thanks to everybody, but I want to spend a particular word for Jan HOFFMANN, Chief of Trade of UNCTAD. First, since he was so kind to attend our meeting, and secondly, since somebody knows that my career started in Geneva in December 1973 at UNCTAD, where I was a young trainee of Italian Shipowners Association attending the Code of Conduct for conference. So for me, Mr. HOFFMANN, it's quite an emotion that to have you with us, and I thank so much, and I will listen during this interesting webinar to your speech and to the speech of other colleagues. Thank you very much, everybody, and thanks. My last thanks to Riccardo Fuochi, my Vice President and President of Propeller Club of Milano, who has organized together with our Secretariat this important webinar from the Italian side. Riccardo.
Thank you, but I would leave immediately the word to Mr. Jan HOFFMANN and PANARO for their keynote speech. So I'd like to invite Mr. HOFFMANN to start first. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. Very honored to be here. Very happy to have UNCTAD colleagues. And on another occasion, we have to speak about good old times and the code of conduct and this type of thing. If I may just suggest that those who are not speaking kindly mute themselves, and some of the coordinators, actually, we can mute others. So if you don't mute yourself, others might mute you. In the meantime, let me then start sharing my screen. And I didn't prepare a keynote speech. I was told was asked to prepare 10, maybe 15 minutes of some data, some thoughts that then encourage discussion, and also a bit, comparing Italy, Switzerland in this maritime as two maritime economies. So let me then now do the share screen. You should now be seeing something that's a PowerPoint slide. And if I do the full screen, you should now be seeing something like new challenges and opportunities for maritime economies. I like to go chronologically, past, present, and future. Where do we start? With the present. We'll start at our UNCTAD maritime country profiles, of which we are quite proud. UNCTAD was mentioned. We have a long history of looking at shipping, long time series, which are growing. So historically looked at this like more horizontally at ship building, ship owning, ship registration, port traffic, ship scrapping. And now if we are quite happy, we have put for every economy in the world a country profile with basic data. Then to compare apples and oranges, we look at the market shares in different segments, the trade in goods, trade and transport services, the national fleet, connectivity, port performance. So by way of introduction for this joint session, here are just the market shares in key shipping areas of Italy and Switzerland. I hope you can see this, and the small print is not too small, and you have screens and glasses big enough. I really hope it should work. On my screen, I can see it quite well. So you see there's a group that looks at GDP and trade. So both countries have a trade surplus in the latest data. So there's more merchandise exports than merchandise imports. Both countries are relatively rich compared to the world average. How can we see this? We see that the share of each country in its GDP, the gross domestic product, is higher than its share in the population. Yeah, so both countries have a higher GDP per capita. Now, when it comes to, let's look at the bottom, when it comes to port traffic, not very surprisingly, there's much more in Italy than in Switzerland. In fact, this is partly based on AIS data and or satellite, the AIS. We have some recorded port calls from liquid bulk carriers, to BAL, that are included here. There's also some container port traffic in Switzerland, but overall, no, it's not a port country. The port country is Italy, and you may even have freight forwarders that use Italian ports to ship into Switzerland. And Monsieur Grabe, who will later on speak about the freight forwarder's perspective, maybe you can explain those details. When it comes to the shipping business as such, it is here when you look also at the national fleet and the national ownership. I hope you can see there's first the national flag fleet and then the fleet ownership. Interestingly, both countries in the ownership have a higher share in the value of the fleet. You see that the US dollar sign vis-a-vis the tonnage, meaning the ships that are owned by Swiss and Italian owners are relatively high value per ton. In terms of flag, we all know, and I know there are some friends here from Geneva also, the Swiss flag has decreased further over the last years. And the Italian flag still is there with a similar pattern, a relatively higher value, because that also includes passenger, of course, which don't have much deadweight. So that's, by way of introduction, a snapshot, a photo where most of you in the room, you are from Italy or from Switzerland, participating in the maritime business. Now let us go a step back. Some long-term trends that I thought are interesting, very key points, big picture, really from UNCTAD's data. We have this hard data from port traffic, and on the demand side, to really see the big picture shift in what are we transporting and shipping. 1970, more than 50% of volume was liquid. It was oil and other tanker. Today, almost 3/4 by now are dry bulk and containers. And among the liquid, the crude oil share is decreasing vis-a-vis other tanker share. This is then mirrored on the supply side when you look at the ships. I have to acknowledge here my son Julian, who has done these beautiful movies with UNCTAD data. And the ships here, in order not to infringe copyrights, he also did with photos that I had taken of real ships. So here you see how the ships, the supply side is changing, how the bulk carriers have overtaken the oil tankers, how the container ships have taken the general cargo carriers. Now that was demand, supply, very brief introduction. I want to highlight one new data set that we published first time in our review of maritime transport, which are confidential freight rates. Now, well, confidential. This is summary data based on data that the big shippers of this world, who are working with the company, I acknowledge here Tim Consult. So the Unilevers, BMWs, Walmarts of this world, they negotiate confidential rates with the MSCs, Maersk, and COSCOs of this world. Then they share these gate to gate, what they really pay. And here you can see what is really paid. It's a table, but it's very informative. It shows clearly that, for example, intra-Asian is much lower than intra-African. It shows a certain relevance of distance. It clearly shows the impact of imbalance. If you were to look at from North America to Asia, is much lower than further up from Asia to North America. So that's for, you will have this PowerPoint. I wanted to highlight this on the market side. We'll come back to the markets when we look at the future and more timely. I will look at markets, at technology, and at the whole issue of decarbonization. That's more or less the latest in spot rates on the left, the all-encompassing Clarksey index on the right. Really interesting times. Yeah, fascinating topics. We could spend hours discussing the perspectives, the reasons, but just wanted to give this update and highlight one key aspect under this search is, of course, the congestion, the upheld capacity. Here's some UNCTAD data thanks to marine traffic. So the median time a container ship spends in port, hard data, AIS data, now or end of COVID, second semester last year, is 19.6% higher than pre-COVID. So the yellow line here, the world median, is almost 20% higher than the blue line. And the long-term trend had actually been a decrease. Now that's important. So we had seen an improvement over the years. And due to COVID, that increased. And now, bear with me, I'm an economist. I love these curves. So this is my explanation of what happens. Demand, supply, microeconomics 101. In shipping, we have a very steep demand curve. One could draw it even steeper because even with high freight rates, it's not such a high part of the final price of the good. So I really, really need this iPhone for Christmas. I pay whatever it takes. And the supply, of course, has a capacity limit. So what happens? The supply curve with the congestion and other reasons I just explained moves to the left. And the demand curve, as we could no longer have our haircuts and no longer go to restaurants and so on and so forth, and there were the stimulus packages, money was put into the economy to compensate for the crisis. What did we do? We did e-commerce, we ordered more goods, demand curves moved to the right. So for me, this picture, if I have to illustrate what is happening in the world of shipping right now, for me, that's the best possible picture. to see this huge increase from one blue dot to another blue dot due to these contravening trends. Of course, now the demand has started to go down again with the Ukraine war and so on, but that's overall what I think we have observed. What does this mean, for example, for prices? Already last year we did a simulation and published that the impact of high logistics cost on prices lead to an increase of consumer prices of 1.5%. Now we have an update here sharing with you. This is soon to be published on our website. Here on the right, you see the world 1.6. So it's actually getting worse. It's certainly not getting better. So our latest update of what we had published, what was in Financial Times and Bloomberg, it's actually getting even worse. And this, when you here see this acronym, I hope some of you have heard this, SIDS, Small Island Developing States. Then we have LDCs, Least Developed Countries. The poorest economies are even more negatively affected by this. Now, Gerd and I just spoke half an hour ago before the event. He said, let's not forget this process of concentration, vertical, horizontal integration also, and Stefan and the freight forwarders will come in. Just to remind me to highlight, so I've added this, we see ships get bigger, capacity also grows, the gray line, but the blue line, the ship size, grows more than the gray line. Mathematically, something has to give. Fewer companies. That's horizontal integration. We also have vertical integration. Shipping lines as port operators, shipping lines as air transport operators, shipping lines as freight forwarders. Now, I guess this will be a topic of discussion. This was one outlook on markets. One second quick outlook on technology. Who leads the IT reforms in your company? Well, it's COVID. So we have seen a lot of demand, additional interest in our work from the port, from the shipping, connectivity to port, to customs, to transit. All this about digitalization. Here I always like to highlight this one key slide. If ever somebody tries to tell you we cannot facilitate trade because we need to control, as if there was a trade-off, and there's somebody who has not muted his microphone. Thank you. So anybody who does not want to digitalize because he says, oh, now we have to control, it's wrong. All the solutions we are promoting, from automation to risk management to single windows to pre-arrival processing to e-payments to more transparency, all these help achieve both, facilitate transport and trade and protect population from all kinds of things. Talking about Italian-Swiss connections, you may know André Simha from Mediterranean Shipping Company, and a Greek connection there as well, by the way. But so he was speaking here at a physical conference in Geneva about the e-bill of lading. So I asked him, would the MSC e-bill of lading have happened without COVID? And the answer was a clear no. So there was not a rhetorical question. It was a real sincere question that, the COVID has promoted modern technological solutions. Last point, decarbonization, the biggest transition that will come to all of us. We have the growing emissions, still today growing further. Thank you. Emissions we have monitored this in our review, are not going down. They are not increasing either. So we have more volumes and not increasing emissions. One could say that is good. Yes, ships are becoming more efficient, but still we want to decrease. And we are not decreasing, we're actually still increasing. So one point, just to throw this also into this room, we had discussed in other forum, there's really a huge, tremendous impetus and momentum towards a carbon levy from the shippers, Trafigura, also here in Geneva, but also the ICS, the World Shipping Council. For us at UNCTAD important, also many of the smaller economies have realized that this is an important tool. Just to raise this thing, this is big money, just order of magnitude. Take 229 million metric tons, for example. then you have to say that's fuel. Each ton of fuel produces 3 tons of CO2. If we have a levy like this proposal, 100 tons per ton of emission, that's 72 with 9 zeros. Now, what is this? $1 billion per year carbon levy. So that's a big business opportunity. So technological progress will never be as slow as today. Don't think this is not doable. It is doable technologically, and I hope also politically. There's an opportunity to decarbonize shipping. The maritime industry has the historical opportunity to be ahead of the curve. It can shape one global multilateral framework. Other industries need to implement many national frameworks for the different cement and beer brewery and car and whatever that's national. Shipping has the global opportunity, so there's less risk of free riders, and there is the opportunity of global enforcement. So that's my little sales pitch. And maritime economies, which we started with, of Switzerland and Italy, are increasingly also realizing this is in their interest. Thank you very much. I hope that was food for thought. Happy to discuss further. So let me stop share, and I'm back with you.
Okay, thank you very much. And now we have Alessandro PANARO that is giving his vision of this very challenging time. Please, Alessandro.
Thank you, Riccardo. If you can confirm that you see my presentation, please.
Yes.
Yes.
Perfect. And good evening, everyone. I would like to thank Propeller Clubs of Italy and Switzerland for inviting. SRM is an economic research center related to Intesa San Paolo Banking Group, and we have a research observatory on the maritime economy that carries out analysis and studies on this sector. It's an honor for me to make my speech after Mr. Jan HOFFMANN, because for our study, for our research, use the database of UNCTAD, the review of maritime transport, and other study that Mr. HOFFMANN and his teams published on the website of UNCTAD. Today I have prepared a presentation in 3 parts: an outlook on the Mediterranean and the current structure of global maritime transport, the recent phenomena affecting maritime transport, and some consideration about the future. I have prepared an infographic where there is an attempt to give an easy overview of everything that is happening at the moment. Let's go by point. COVID-19, the pandemic that has upset the balance of the world's routes, the great race of freight rates, the ever-increasing size of ships, container shortage on the world major strategic routes, port congestion, the phenomenon of vertical integration of logistics, the need to invest in resilient infrastructure in order to be competitive, the great challenge of sustainability and green ports, new reshoring strategies to bring production closer to Europe and the world. This slide shows the main numbers of the Mediterranean. We can observe some very important statistics. 20% of world traffic circulates in the Mediterranean basin. We are talking about over 12 billion tons of goods. 27% of the world container traffic lines transit the Med area. Container traffic has increased by more 500% since 1995. We have an important traffic in short sea shipping, which reaches almost 600 million tons. In addition, the Suez Canal is one of the main global traffic hubs for goods of all types. A sea that has greatly increased its competitiveness in recent years. The Suez Canal is the main transit route from the Mediterranean to the Middle and Far East. Over the past year, more than 20,000 ships of all types have passed through the canal. I would like to highlight the increase in LNG ships and container ships. In addition, there has been a record amount of money collected by the Egyptian government for toll payments. Here, you see the traffic of the top 25 ports from 2005 to 2020 in million of TEUs. Ports have grown by 120%, and all those phenomena we have seen have not stopped this trend. I find this slide on our website specialized on maritime transport, and this slide gives us a summary of what has happened in these 3 years with 4 questions. What was the average spot price in dollars on the main world routes? In 2019, it was over $1,400. Today, it's over $7,500, a dramatic increase. How many containers have been handled by the world ports? A very clear picture of the resilience of the infrastructure as traffic picks up. Over 800 million TEUs. How many ships arrive at ports on time? In 2021, we have a figure over 36%, and 2 years ago it was 78%. So the quality of service has deteriorated. What was the transit time of ships in the China-US route? We have gone from 39 to 68 days. Port congestion has had an impact. The canal also showed the vulnerability of the world logistics system whenever given blocked it. We had complicated weeks. Ships and goods were delayed. Freight rates went up, port congestion, detours to the Cape of the Good Hope routes were cancelled. It wasn't just a stranded ship, but a blocked logistics system with struggling industries and the entire supply chains at a standstill. We realized that the logistics system is very dependent on deep sea shipping routes. Freight rates are still the real problem in maritime transport. They have risen to record levels. Here we look at one of the jury's best-known indicators called the World Container Index. It shows us the average freight rates you have to pay for a container to be loaded on the 8 strategic routes. You can see the routes on the right. Finally, the curve starts to come down, but the amount is still high. These 2 tables show us the reliability of ships has declined. In 2021, the punctuality rate of ships was always below 40%. On the left, you can see the companies with the longest and the shortest delays. Here we are talking about the famous port congestion. Ports all over the world, especially those in China and United States, have slowed down a lot due to the Omicron virus. This has led to many ports having to deal with numerous ships sitting idle. A very interesting map shows the ships clustered together waiting to enter the port of Shanghai. And on the right, we have the relationship between the growth of the infection and the number of ships stopped. You see that as the number of contagion grows, so does the congestion in Chinese ports. Let us now turn the phenomenon of naval gigantism. As you can see from the graph below, ship over 15,000 TEUs will grow by 8% in 2022, 25% in 2023, and 21% in 2024. So despite everything, the phenomenon of naval gigantism will not stop. But now my study center is also starting to monitor the so-called green tonnage. In recent years, there has been a lot of talk about the sustainability of shipping. Also, Mr. HOFFMANN spoke of this phenomenon. Ship owners are starting to build greener ships, such as ships that use LNG, methanol, and ammonia. This graph show you how many ships are being built in the period 2022-2024. As the months go by, the number of green ships increases. The forecasts say that the Mediterranean will continue to grow. I ask to close the microphone, please. So there will be opportunities for everyone, and therefore investing in competitiveness, sustainability, and modernization of our port will be fundamental, not least to combat pandemic. The more resilient we are, the more we'll be able to deal with economic shocks. In Italy, the value of Italian maritime economy is very high, and we are also recovering the traffic lost during the pandemic. Italy is a country with a strong connection to the maritime transport. We have 33% of our export and import by sea, amounting to over 200 billion euros. Finally, I would like to make a few remarks about the future. To combat the pandemic, we have drawn a major strategic plan, the recovery plan. It gives us the way forward, a future that must be built on 5 axes: resiliency, digitalization, sustainability, energy saving, green ports. Our ports will also have resources to use for projects in this direction. The short sea shipping is fundamental for us. You see that Italy is a leader in the Mediterranean in the short sea shipping with a share of 38%. And this final slide shows which direction the Italian maritime system is taking. We are following the strategy of sustainability. It means moving towards a new model that know how to design green ports, ever greener ships, and green logistics. This means following new strategies such as intermodality, new fuels for ships, renewable energy, and other questions suggested by the national plan. And then there are also the special economic zone as a tool to encourage nearshoring and reshoring. But I would need more time to talk about this. Thank you for your attention. And Riccardo, I give the floor to you.
So thank you very much, Alessandro. And I wish to thank Alessandro and Jan for their very interesting keynote that have provided us a scientific and professional analysis of the current situation and trend of the shipping and supply chain industry. We are somehow shocked by some of the numbers that Alessandro has highlighted, especially when I was mentioning the lead time increase by the double in 2 years, and in terms of rate increased by 4 times compared to the 2019. So we are now starting the second part of our meeting, and which is a roundtable with some very important guests. And I would leave to my colleague Gert, president of the Propeller Club of Geneva, to introduce the first speaker of the roundtable. Thank you.
Thank you, Riccardo. Just for your information, I'm not anymore the president. I have been for 8 years, but that was enough.
President is always a president, Gert. Okay. There's no way.
Thank you very much, Jan and Alessandro, for your very clear macroeconomic view, which was mainly axed on the trades and the shipping and the carriers volumes. So now we obviously will go to the other aspect. We have as first speaker here Dr. Stefan Grabe, who I welcome and really happy you could participate. You can soon put your microphone on. So I don't have to explain what FIATA is. So I know Stefan from before when he was working at the economic department of the Republic of the and Canton of Geneva. After, when he was Secretary General of the Swiss Trading and Shipping Association, which I know also quite well. Now, the subject that we wanted to develop a little bit more is the position of the freight forwarders, because with all this growth of traffic, don't forget that ship owners have had very, very bad times before. Right? So a lot of people seem to forget they were losing a lot of money. But now that everything goes well, what is the future for the freight forwarder? Because everybody is growing, and Stefan wants to concentrate on the competition in the maritime transport sector, and then the relevance, second, and value of multimodal freight forwarders in an increasingly oligopolistic trade sector. I think you also wanted to touch some words about the digitalization of trade documentation, your fiat electronic bills of lading. Up to you, Stefan.
So thank you very much, Gert, and thank you to the Propeller Club of Italy and Switzerland for the invitation. It's a great honor for me to join you today. It's also nice to see Jan and some of you that I know for a long time. So I will try to share with you the view of the freight forwarding industry as that is represented here by FIATA. FIATA, just to give you some figures, it's the Association for International Freight Forwarders and Associates. It's 111 national association member, so 111 in 111 countries, but we have also direct members. 40,000. We represent 40,000 freight forwarders in the world from 150 countries. So quite an important industry here. And I think just to rebound on what Gerd said, as I used to have also other function in the past, I know that it was not always easy in the last 10 years for ship owners and carriers, because the time were not what it is today. But what I will try a little bit to underline here in my presentation is the aspect of why we need to have a healthy competition in the maritime transport sector and how it benefits everyone. And I will also highlight some of the effects of problem of competition that were highlighted and that might impact developing economies, just to rebound on something that was also mentioned by Jan in his introduction. So if you allow, I will just share my screen. I have prepared a few slides to be more focused. I hope you can see them. Do you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, perfect. So let's start now. So what is the current maritime situation? I will not come back to what was said before. I think Jan and Alessandro did a great job. Maybe just effectively the disruption that is continuing now in Q1 of 2022. The unreliable situation that was very well demonstrated by Alessandro, unpredictable high freight rates, and a concern that started to be really strong about freight forwarders on unfair market condition, and also it's linked to the restriction by some carriers to freight forwarders' access to services, and that's something that we saw in the last few months developing very much. That is, carriers starting to refuse the service to freight forwarders. And maybe linked to that, I will just provide figures here that comes from the ITF, International Transport I forget the name exactly, but ITF with an organization which says 3 shipping alliances dominate 80% of the global market and 95% of critical east-west trade lanes. And that, I think I have the reference with me, so I can give you that a bit more precise. It comes from, yes, the International Transport Forum, and it's a publication of 2018, The Impact of Alliances in Container Shipping. So some elements important to keep in mind. So competition in the maritime sector. Shipping lines are benefiting from some advantages and exemptions. I think we don't have any issue, and there is no particular issue in that. There were reasons for that, particularly in the last 10 years. I think there is reason regarding also competition between different continents. So that's not really where there might be any start to be an issue, but the issue is probably linked to the fact that shipping lines now more and more expand outside of port-to-port activities. And doing that, they benefit from some advantages protected. They are, for example, protected under consortia umbrella, state and government support. So they put them in a possibility to exercise this outside of their primary activity, and that's a little bit where it starts to a little bit be problematic with competition, because it might be used and create some unfair playing field, and this might impact demurrage and detention fees, free times, inland container pickup, drop-off charges. So that brings me to the danger of an oligopolistic markets. Shipping lines, as they continue, and we see this, and you talked before about the verticalization or the integration, vertical integration of the logistics, they more and more continue to expand their services outside of port-to-port activities, and they still rely on antitrust exemption. There is merger and acquisition that strengthen big carriers, investment in large logistic companies, and then they start to be able to use their advantages in competition to compete with other actors that doesn't benefit from that. And so what we see that instead of facilitating the supply chain, there is here really a risk and an issue of hindering the supply chain. So then there are two other elements we need to mention. It was mentioned before, digitalization speed up, that also accelerate the threat of such verticalization. And also something important, I think, is that customer never benefits from oligopolistic markets because it brings a restriction on choice and market access. And here we can rediscuss later on this, but this is a main concern when it comes to small and medium companies, to economies, developing economies, less developed economies, and their access to markets. Because these economies are relying a lot on small and medium freight forwarders, family-owned companies that can arrange small shipment of goods, and if their access to the shipping is reduced, then you start to have a negative impact that is affecting the market. So multimodal freight forwarders and their role in the supply chain. That I was asked to just comment on that. So we see that global economy at large was impacted, and freight forwarders play really a key role in movement of goods worldwide. They are a little bit also the guardians. Maybe it's a bit provocative, but I thought it's important to remind that they play an important role in the efficiency and the diversification of supply chain. And they are experienced, and that's their core activity, to respond effectively to customer needs and to offer optionality to their customers, to organize multimodal options, to provide market access to SMEs. And I think where we see a lot of our members in developing economies, in countries where we have a lot of SMEs, freight forwarder, that plays a very important role to provide this access to this, for these countries, to global trade, grouping shipments for best rates. So long-term shareholders in freight forwarders have financial stability, reliability of service, and strong business model to rely on. So who are the worst affected right now by the situation we have now? And I here will just underline what was said by Jan in introduction, is the developing countries that are heavily relying on maritime supply chain access. It's the SMEs who form the backbone of their national economies and that are forced in the spot market and exposed to high freight rates. And we see that the smaller companies and the country relying the more on SMEs are the more impacted, and that really across and confirm the figures that and some of the comments of Jan at the introduction. Consumer price levels expected to raise 1.5%, 7.5% in small island developing state, according to UNCTAD and the report mentioned by Jan. So if SMEs are removed from the picture, we will definitely have a loss in market choice. The innovation will drop, the market drive will stagnate, and developing countries will not have access to the maritime supply chain. It's a bit provocative, but I think it's a little bit the trend we see with and where freight forwarders are really worried about. So what is the current maritime crisis outlook? So everybody expected a recovery by the end of 2022. I think it's still the case, but we saw that today this recovery is hampered. So as you know, much better than me, infrastructure, vessels cannot be built overnight. We have the issue of inflation and interest rates that might affect customers. You have customer spending changes. You have the environmental new requirement. You have the war in Eastern Europe, and you have the pandemic effects in China that now entered a new area, because if in the last 2 years we see a lot of disruption in ports, now it appears that there is a move toward the production. And right now there is really an effect of the pandemic more on the production of goods, of exporting goods, and while the ports are still functioning, because, for example, in Shanghai, it's very much automated. So it was probably less affected, but the production is not following because the Yangtze Delta or the Shanghai area is completely paralyzed. So we have a big uncertainty for the maritime supply chain. So we know that shipping lines might have to adapt again. They can reduce capacity. There is blank and void selling, consortia break exemption. So there are solutions to adapt. A certain geographical diversification will be necessary. So there were a big debate during the pandemic saying, yeah, maybe we were not too much relying on globalization. We need to localize production. It seems that that's not really what will help. And there is some recent study that were published, I think in the last few days, showing that in reality, the only way to ensure more resilience is geographical diversification, which is not bad for, and probably good perspective for logistics in the future. A diversified supply chain would be more desirable to increase supply chain resilience, so certainly rather than an oligopolistic market. And digitalization is playing also an increasing role in the future of the supply chain. I think it was well demonstrated before me by Jan and Alessandro. So now just one word on digitization, because that's also an area that is important, and FIATA works with a lot of organization on the challenge today of organizing an efficient and the connectivity of the supply chain. So we are in a kind of alliances with BIMCO, DCSA, ICC, SWIFT, and other companies to overcome some of the challenges of digitalization and exchange of data. But I think what I want to here also highlight is that if we want to have a well-functioning market and an efficient supply chain, it requires a distributed data approach rather than a centralized one. It necessitates data sharing and exchange with different actors of the supply chain globally, the promotion of trusted networks. There is a real importance of distributed data ecosystem, ensuring that each actor in the supply chain remains in control of their own data, and that we not here see the next oligopoly in the data. Promotion of industry open source standards, that's a way to approach it, and the use of APIs. I think that's more and more what we see developing now. It's also the approach that we've chosen 2 years ago. So developing FIATA EFBL data standards, that is an open source standard that is freely available for all the actors, and also then a FIATA paperless electronic bill of lading that will be launched in the next few weeks, because we now run all the proof of concept. We are working closely with the software provider to make it available to all the users of transport managing systems. And I think that's very important for us as an organization looking for the efficiency of the supply chain, to ensure that it's a democratic approach where everyone can control their data, and that we are not creating the oligopoly from tomorrow in the data field. So I also wanted to add this because it's part of the competition of tomorrow. And I think we all, ports, freight forwarders, shippers, even if sometimes the time are different, I think it's important that we have a sane competition with diversified actors, and that will really improve the resilience of the supply chain. So thank you for your attention.
So thank you, Mr. Grabe, for your very interesting analysis of the world of the freight forwarders. And thank you for pointing out the importance of the freight forwarder in this world that is becoming more and more global, and where the verticalization is every day growing and becoming more and more important. Nowadays, the freight forwarder are not only the guardian, as you said, of the shipping and logistic industry, but are also the connectors between the, especially the small and medium-sized enterprises and the logistic and shipping world. So they're still playing a very important role in the supply chain. And I hope that, but also your word somehow saying the same, that in future the freight forwarder will still play an important role. And now I would listen the other world of the logistic industry, the shipping industry. So we have Mr. Stefano Messina, which is currently chairman of the Gruppo Messina SPA, chairman of Roro Italia SPA, and executive deputy chairman of Ignacio Messina SPA, and which is the major fleet of Roro container and operating regular line within the Mediterranean, Africa, and the Middle East, and the Indian subcontinent. Mr. Messina is also vice president of Jolly SPA, and since January 2018 has been appointed as president of Asso Armatori, and since November 2020 has been vice president of Trasporto, Commercio. So I would like to listen from Mr. Messina what he thinks about the future scenario and the role of the freight forwarder, especially the multimodal freight forwarder operators. Please, Mr. Messina.
Thank you. You confirm our listening? Yes. It's good.
Yes.
Voice?
Yes,
Okay.
excellent.
Okay. Thank you very much to everybody. Thanks to the all Propellers network setting up, organizing the webinar, even if in particular to Riccardo for the presentation of my person. But I will be, as I normally try to be, very direct and pragmatic in the opportunity I keep to give my contribution to the discussion. In particular, after the very interesting, even if a little heavy, words and presentation of Mr. Stefan, that apart the wonderful name he owns, Stefan, that is so the same, but not the surname Grabe, a little bit worse. Anyway, I will try to give you my position. And I divide the discussion in two different points. In particular, the first is about the today discussion. And my answer is yes. Yes, in my opinion, even if the vertical integration of the big global carriers in the freight forwarders are persisting and growing, there is a space for the medium-sized freight forwarding. This is not only a answer just to give a political, a diplomatic position, but is what, with my top management and all the colleagues, in particular the commercial and marketing, and all the network all around the world of Messina world are living in the daily business. What I say, first of all, the consequences of the globalization have involved the shipping lines. First of all, and before in terms of chronologic times, than the freight forwarders. In fact, what Stefan, apart joking, was presenting is the concentration not only in the east-west trade, in which you detailed the 90% of the market share, but generally speaking in all trades. But on the other side, there are still medium operators. I would say that probably the little operators disappeared, or probably will disappear definitely in the next years. But the medium, and then we should stay here to invest, spend time, which is the benchmark of the dimension, which is the fleet capacity, the deadweight, the numbers of vessels deployed in the services. There are many criteria in which to divide the definition. But generally speaking, I think that the medium operators are those have the opportunity to have an independence and to have also a capacity to receive the cargo from the clients that are the freight forwarders, because this is the first reason why I think that there is still space for medium operators in freight forwarding also, even if we cannot disguise the fact that the integral the vertical integration is influencing often negatively the scenario. Why there is still space? First of all, in terms of quality of services, and in this reason, I have just to give you an example. When I was invited at the webinar of today, I had the opportunity to involve my management and to receive contribution from the market to give some interesting points. And the most important thing that I received confirm, even if it's normal for us in the daily business, is that the majority of cargo that Messina Line is receiving is from the medium little size freight forwarders that are changing, because we cannot disguise the fact that there are 3 points that are more and more important in all the industries. The first is that the dimension for the investments, because, and the second point touched was about also not only for the old style freight forwarders, but the logistic operator. You need investment, you need integration, because when I started to work, the logistic operator and the freight forwarder were totally different subjects. Today, they are integrated. So the vertical integration was made also in the sector of the freight forward. Then the second part is about the specific observation that you gave, Mr. Stefan. And I think there are many interesting dates and data. Sorry. I think it's a little bit early to say what is happening. We are assisting what is happening, but it's too early, because I cannot avoid to recognize that today is something of extraordinary. Just this morning, I had the opportunity, because they were published when the financial market opened, about the result of the first quarter of Maersk, for example. And we are at top level EBITDA margin on turnover that is atypical for every kind of industry, even if I sustain that all the industries are growing this way. So I think it's a little bit early, but you used a very and more than one time, if I was not distracted on your presentation, that is uncertainty. Today we are full of uncertainty, because also on what is happening in Shanghai, in China, about the congestion, etc., is a big, on short term, it could be also a big damage also for the liners, because we have deployed and many inefficiencies, consequences of what's happening, because we are not doing new building, but we are managing the actual capacity, and we have these economies in the daily time charter equivalent and the use of equipments. So today, my conclusion is that, first of all, there is opportunity, and very important about the specialization in digitalization. But also in that kind of opportunity, you will have the capacity to invest, because digitalization requires big investment, huge investment, and attraction of the talents in terms of careers, in terms of salary, in terms of scenario of growing of the company. And don't forget also the alliances. Okay, so this is my position, and very happy to go on about the the discussion that we will have. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefano. Now I leave to Gerd to introduce the new speaker. Please, Gerd. Gerd, are you there?
Okay. Gerd, you are muted.
The microphone, Gerd, the microphone.
You are muted.
Sorry. I wish to introduce now, in the first place, freight forwarder.
Scusate, ci sono, ho fatto casino col microfono. Sorry, I was present.
You don't hear me? Oh, Roberta Psa Cavadini, who is the owner of Psa Transporti SA, but at the same time, she's the president of Spedlock Swiss at Ticino. So actually, one of your, Stefan, one of your, let's say, associations, domestic associations. So she will try to give us some suggestions for small, medium forwarding companies to develop in this vertical integration of large groups. Up to you, Roberta.
Thank you very much, Gerd, and thanks very much, Riccardo Fuochi and the Propeller Group to inviting me to this tonight in this evening. And I thank you also. It's very nice what Mr. Messina was saying, because really it's a lot of things that you will hear now in a different way from small companies. But I want to share my, just a second, I'm going to share my video. And let me know if you can see it. Is it okay? Okay, great, then. So as Gerd told you, my name is Roberta Psa Cavadini. I'm president from Spedlock Swiss region Ticino. And I want to start to speak about Spedlock Swiss, that is the association, is a national association of freight forwarders in Switzerland. We represent both large companies and small, medium enterprises in the freight forwarding industry. Just a small word about the big players. So big players are doing shopping in transport and shipping sectors in order to guarantee a global service to their big customer. We see, for instance, Maersk entering the air sector, or lately in the custom sector, or MSC entering in distribution sector in Africa, or even Lidl starting with in the ocean sector. All this in a process of vertical integration that we are well aware of. But are we sure that it will be enough to compete with new technological realities such as Amazon or Uber Freight? Realities that are definitely interesting in our market. If they want to survive, the big companies will probably have to transport themselves into shipping technology agency and become digital platforms. But for small and medium company, it will be very difficult to do this because they do not have the financial and structural strength of corporations. For small and medium company, a sector which I belong to, the future will be more and more selective. We have to be ready to face the fact that big customers will probably not be our target anymore. Most of them already work with the big forwarding agents. So we will need to focus on small and medium customers. With this in mind, we see three opportunities for the future of small companies. The first step is to create a bond of trust. Our customer comes to us to solve situations that are not their core business, that they are not familiar with, and most of all, that waste their precious time. We must be the connection between what the customer asks and his real need. We need to be more curious, more passionate, more active in our listening. We have to give our client an unforgettable experience. Only by doing this, we will be able to provide the right product at exactly the right time to exactly the right customer. We think that is the only way to build a relationship of trust. Rachel Botsman, writer and international speaker, said that trust is the currency of the future because trust is a confident relationship with the unknown. And about the unknown, these last 2 years have given us a great opportunity. These last 2 years have shown the world that there is nothing more unknown and complex than trust. The second step, we have to become specialists. We have to focus and do what we do well, just that. Trying to offer all the services make us lose energy, and we may offer poor results. Let's leave that to the big groups. We must create niche and become the best in the sector we want to focus on. Quality. We must have the courage to say no when they ask us for services they are not our core business. This will not be easy. This leads us into step 3, the most difficult to accept because it puts pressure on the entrepreneur's ego. The third step is that small and medium enterprise will have to join forces to create partnership if they want to survive. We will have to sit down together and start cooperating to build a network of truly capable and valuable companies to offer our customers. I'm talking about partnership, but not as it always has been meant in our branch, because that doesn't work, and we know that. I'm talking about a new way of interpreting the partnership. I'm talking about competition, which is nothing more than cooperating with competitors to create competitive advantage. Accepting the logic of competition means understanding that in a context of crisis and scarcity, small and medium companies cannot have all the resources they need to achieve and maintain lasting success. But what competition means? Competition is share information. That means transparency. Competition is innovate. That means focus in building something new together. Competition is choose the right competitor. Choose a similar company, but with different bits. Small and medium enterprise cannot think of achieving success alone. The only way to achieve something great is to work with other people, other companies. At the end, implementing these 3 points, trust, focus, and competition, can probably ensure a future for our small and medium-sized enterprises. Thank you.
Grazie, Roberta. Thank you very much. You have given us a very clear vision of what should be the future action of the small and medium-sized freight forwarder to survive in the market. Not only to survive, but to grow. And now I would like to invite Mr. Massimiliano Cozzani, which
Sorry,
is...
but I don't know how to go out. I don't know how to go out.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I really.
We like your slide. That's
no, okay, but I don't know how to close them.
Normally you push the same square again.
Done it. Thanks, sorry.
Okay, now we have Mr. Massimiliano Cozzani, Director of PSA Genova. Everybody knows PSA, which is one of the major terminal operators in the world. Massimiliano has a liner shipping background with a different management position in medium-sized and multinational container shipping lines, and he turned to the terminal side of the industry in the last 10 years. At PSA is currently trying to exploit synergies between the two worlds in a moment where vertical integration is key for both ourselves and our customers. I also understand that PSA is providing a connection, a service between Switzerland and the Italian port. So please, Mr. Massimiliano.
Thanks, Riccardo. First of all, thanks for inviting us in this also last-minute invitation in this very interesting group of participants. And on behalf of PSA and also of my Swiss colleague, Natalia, which is also a member of the Propeller Club in Basel. Now she had a baby, so she's now out of the industry for a couple of months. So after these theoretical presentations, I would say I would define ourselves as a case study, where some of the concepts that we have been described find an application, because I remember some buzzwords from some presentations, some like that you need investment, there is vertical integration, there is digital application to products, there is sustainability. And last but not least, partnership, but I would like to come at the end, maybe after the presentation. I will try myself to do this. So I don't know if this is visible. Let's see. It should come up. Can you see that?
Yes, it is. Excellent.
So this is a product which started at the end of 2018, so in the pre-COVID world. And it was a real willingness of PSA, which is, as you know, a global port operator. So the port is our bread and butter, in fact, and still is, of an effort to move out, or better, move around our core business. So we had this investment, which is, and by investment, we see something that you see a break even very far away in time. So we built up this weekly connection to Switzerland, and we choose Basel as the proper basin to have this exercise done. So as a matter of fact, we built a product with 3 connections a week. Also going back to the discussion, I have to say that in this case, we found a very much freight forwarding community, which is, I would say, almost 100% of our customers are freight forwarders. And this is a key note of the Swiss market as we found it. And the idea is to connect Genoa. As you may know, PSA since 1.5 years has 2 terminal majority participation in Genoa. And so we decided to connect both the biggest one, which is Genova Pra, and the SEC, which is the small terminal in the old harbor, to connect on this train. We did also something more, which is anti-conventional in a way, because we are connecting also all the other terminals of the old port to connect on our train. So this is how we look at this as a community system. So all of the terminals of the old port are connected to our product. In doing this, so we found a big result on the Far East and Middle East trades, for instance, not on the North American, even if in Genoa this is one of the biggest trade for Italian local cargo. But as a matter of fact, we found a success on Far East and Middle East because of transit time and because of the mix of price and costs for our customers, compared to the North European range of ports, which is our real competitor. So again, the advantage of being a terminal operator gives a lot of visibility. So we know in this moment when schedules are erratic, as we have seen, we have the potential to connect the proper container from the vessel on the proper train for the quick transit. So this is an advantage we are exploiting. And of course, the CO2 emissions, this is a very it's a concept which is picking up a lot in Switzerland, and also we are keen on being a good competitor also in these terms. Also if you go and look at the barge system, which is very strong in North Europe, but this is again, these are diesel ships, and this is probably what the Swiss market now wants, is a sustainable development also on transportation. Again, we are able to connect a lot of routes from Basel, the nearby France, for instance, and you will see also later. This is also a typical slide that we have the maritime business competition. So we can calculate our CO2 footprint. And as a matter of fact, we are 15 to 40% in lower CO2 emissions on average compared to any service going through the northern range. So this is something we can touch, and it is something which is useful to know also for anyone using the rail transport. Well, this is Psa Global Network. And again, this is a small product in this environment. For your reference, we have 6 connections per week, but in our terminal in general, we have another 90 per week connecting Italian terminals. But we are keen on investing and developing this product to the point that recently we found an agreement with another operator to be able to connect Wolfurt in Austria through our Basel-Frankendorf terminal. So in theory, now there is a possibility to connect Austria to Genoa as well, including the old port terminals. And this is what I would like to go back on the concept, which I'm pretty sure of, because I also personally lived through all the path of concentration of carriers. And as a matter of fact, I agree that the COVID period increased or shortened the time of reaction for every one of us participating in the chain. And I would say that now adapting or changing in a very short period of time could be more impacting on all participants. And I'm referring to all the participants, ourselves included. So most likely the word partnering would be a correct approach for the years to come. Not going necessarily alone, but partnering to develop new products. Of course, this, and I partially disagree with the concept of co-op, the concept that was presented, that there is no word of investment there. I think you need to have an investment plan to develop partnerships. Otherwise, I believe this could not be a viable solution. So thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Massimiliano. So, Gerd, it's your turn.
Again, I'm like my colleague, I cannot go out of this. So.
We go back to the Swiss participants. So I wish to present to you now Mr. Alberto Grizzone, who I believe, are you around, Alberto?
Yes, I am.
Oh, yeah, you're there. Okay. Because
thank you, Alberto.
You're in Istanbul for the moment, huh?
Yes.
Oh, okay. But
looking for alliances, competition, and partnership.
It has no limits. So Alberto Grizzone is director of development Russia and CIS countries for HOFFMANN Intermodal SA. So HOFFMANN is a leading multimodal transport operator in Europe with an accent on rail transport. That's basically where you started, I guess, between the European continent, Mediterranean, and CIS countries. And I think you are the person in charge for the CIS. So Alberto will explain the role of forwarders, and in particular, I think the title you gave was Giants are Beautiful, but Small is More Beautiful. Up to you.
Okay, thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you very much for everybody will be patient to listen to me. I prefer to speak a little bit freely without presentation, that especially because of my very limited skills in technology and digitalization, I would never be able to produce it here. Now, I am also responsible for the strategic project in the company, as now talking about Russia and CIS is not very fashionable in this very period. I would say, I would start from what our former general manager of the HOFFMANN group used to say. The advantage of HOFFMANN being in Chiasso, but with a lot of investment from the German part of Switzerland, is to be capable to have 1 foot on the south of the Alps and 1 foot on the north of the Alps, trying to conjugate the Latin fantasy with the German pragmatism. And if we try to conjugate the German pragmatism with the Latin fantasy and creativity, and maybe also, as we have a company in Holland, the typical attitude of selling anything possible, which is typical of our colleague from the port of Rotterdam or from Rotterdam, I would say that we come into a point which is bringing us to think, number one, the vertical integration and the more and more integration and push of the big giant shipping lines into the forwarding, warehousing, transport, rail transport. It's something that normally every 5 years is an oscillation between integrate as much as possible and coming out from as much as possible. Clearly, the economic result that has been realized during the last 2 years are bringing and forcing towards as much as possible big integration. But nobody will never be able to realize everything by himself. It is absolutely impossible. It is impossible to control the market simply because the market is leading the strategy. Nobody can drive the market. Something that also in our little world of the railway operator, we learn during the late 90s and during the early millennial years, when some very big national railway companies started to make shopping around, decided to integrate between railway and Schenker, etc., looking into big entrance into the stock exchange market, etc. At the end of the day, they came to realize that there is a need of all the actors, the forwarders, the transporter, the ship agent, the big, the medium, and the small one. Of course, the capacity has to be realized. I agree in creativity, capacity of investment, capacity of providing quality, capacity of targeting what is typical of what we are able to do. For example, when we started to offer on the market to go by train from Europe to China or to Japan, personally, I started in the year 2008, so quite before the fashion of the Silk Road trains. Many of the forwarders, they were telling me, if you want to do that, you have to offer me the full package, door-door. And my answer was always, sorry, if I have to do door-door, first of all, I will go directly to your customer, because there is no need that I give up a part of the margin as I'm becoming the one which is investing everywhere. But second, I want to remain neutral. My work is to fill up the trains and to organize the train from one railway terminal into another railway terminal. We do not have fleet of containers. We still do not have fleet of containers. We do not have truck, even a network of subcontractors for offering the first and last mile. And we do not do that. Our job remains by 99.8% of our business to do terminal to terminal, filling the train. We try to specialize ourselves as much as possible. And despite our 55 years specialization, with the situation of the railway infrastructure and reconstruction works that are at this moment ongoing, it's quite difficult to be able to say to the market, don't worry, your container will arrive at the right place, at the right time, at the right moment that you wish. So we try to remain concentrated on that. This is bringing to the first point. Small and medium is beautiful because there will be always the possibility to be more flexible with little dimension. The second point is I do not want to call it exactly competition, but I agree with whom said alliances. Of course, in an alliance can be that there are situations where two partners, they may compete somewhere. It's important to be very clear in order to keep the same philosophy. And the alliances are very important to create, let me say so, a meeting of specialities. For example, one of our targets now is to try to create a sort of network linking the Italian interland services between the South Mediterranean ports and some hub in Italy into a European intermodal network. We think that we are good in making European networking. We are not very good in linking the Italian interland. There are companies that are extremely well specialized, extremely knowing the environmental situation, etc. And we try to create together the alliances through some hub and spoke. We try also to create together the functionality. Hello? Are you still listening to me?
Yes, yes. We do.
Yes, we are, Alberto.
No, because I have some echo of some more voices. And we try also to create combination between continental and maritime traffics in order to try to obtain the advantages on the
microphone.
Okay. And to try to create the possibility to have advantages among all the things. So alliances, middle company or even small company, thanks to a political solution of alliances, put together their solutions, can be able to find these skills, investment capacity, and solution to be offered on the market. And last but not least, I would say the creativity mixed to the pragmatism. It is a nonsense to say we will connect the full world. We will never be able, if I talk about the HUPAC, we will never be able to have on the same time and within the next 2 years interland services in Bilbao, Barcelona, Le Havre, Rotterdam, Genova, Trieste, Napoli, etc. We need to be a little bit selective, being ready to seize the opportunities through alliances or through market demands, like, for example, we started 2 months ago, pardon me, the service from the port of Trieste, and trying to catch the good opportunity and create an integration between the good opportunity and the existing network in order to reduce as much as possible the investment and keeping more flexible financial possibilities. So, resuming, the dimension, it will be not a particular problem, especially if that is integrated with capacity of being ready for alliances. The investment capacity, activity, and the pragmatism will be the one that will lead us to do what we are able to do and to create the opportunity and to be able to seize the good opportunity. Working everybody together. That's everything from my side.
Thank you, Alberto, for joining us. I know you are in Istanbul, and nevertheless, you've been able to join this meeting between the Propeller Clubs. Now, I don't know whether Mr. Signorini has arrived. I know that he was in Rome, he was committed to the parliament, but I don't know whether he has been able to join us. Maybe, Ms. Marina Monti, you can tell us something about Mr. Signorino, you can say something about the port of Genova.
Salve, buongiorno. Guardi, purtroppo, salve Picozzi, marketing appunto di Ports of Genoa, stiamo cercando di contattarlo, si vede che ha avuto appunto impegni ultimo che non gli hanno ancora permesso di collegarsi. L'abbiamo ancora provato a ricontattare proprio 10 minuti fa, se riesce a collegarsi lo farà proprio all'ultimo adesso. Mi scuso intanto purtroppo per il problema, ma appunto un impegno da cui sperava di liberarsi in tempo, ecco. Grazie.
No, assolutamente. A questo punto lascerei la parola a Umberto Masucci e Christian Döpgen per le loro considerazioni sulla discussione di questa sera.
Thank you, Riccardo. Before going to our final conclusions, that I don't think we can draw a conclusion. It was so interesting and those speeches, but I see a raised hand by Paolo Costa. Paolo,
okay.
Very happy you are joining us. Paolo Costa, please. Paolo, I can't hear you. Paolo, you have your microphone off. No, Paolo, you should turn it on. It seems that Paolo Costa has some problem to join us by voice. I don't know if he has a possibility later on. Meanwhile, from my side, as I was telling you, Riccardo, I think you and Gert had done a real very good work putting together so many top speakers and discussion, even if the two Stefano were not agreeing on the same subjects, but there was a frank discussions, and I think a visit was we deserve. What we deserve also is a physical presence. We are starting now physical presence. So from my side, I hope that we can have another bilateral meeting in the future between Switzerland and Italy, but within presence, either in Switzerland or in northern Italy. But we need to meet each other, to not only in the screen. And I think nowadays it is time to meet again together. Very interesting. The two keynote speakers, both Alessandro, I could listen or not listen, since I have already listened half an hour this morning in the University of Salerno, but Jan was real something new for me, and as I was saying in my opening remarks, is something that it is bringing back to my trainee experience at UNCTAD. So I hope, Jan, you could join in Italy in one of our events. Possibly I will send you an invitation for the Naples shipping week of late September. It would be great to have you as a special guest at our meetings. By the way,
with pleasure. And late September sounds doable.
Yeah, it is confirmed the presence also of Kitak Lim, Secretary General of IMO. So it would be good to have you as well at our Naples shipping meeting. But my final thanks, apart from the Swiss friends, from Riccardo and from the Secretariat of both Italian and Swiss Propeller Clubs, goes to Mark Schirling, the coordinator of European Propeller Clubs, who has the merit to put together, to squeeze us in order that we can give more and more to the common field of maritime, logistics and ports. So, Mark, I want to listen to your voice as well.
Thank you, Umberto. And what a wonderful panel we have had with very interesting subjects. And it shows that, well, we know, of course, because we are in there on a daily basis, that our shipping and logistics world is always in movement. It's always in change. It's agile. We adapt to the new circumstances that we have, and also these new circumstances, they create a lot of opportunities in there. And what I found through our different speakers that we had here, if you are a shipping line, if you are a freight forwarder, if you are a transport company or a rail company, of course you have all the same challenges that you are facing with, but more or less you are also on common ground. SMEs, small companies work with small companies, cooperation, digitization that we see. So it's all the same topics that you have over the board. And indeed, what we also saw that is very often, like Alberto, yeah, it's a pleasure to see you again after all this time also. Yes, it's a cyclic. Today, everybody's consolidating, is integrating, and tomorrow it will be the other way around. We've seen that with Maersk. They bought hinterland terminals, they got rail connections, they got trucking companies, and all of a sudden they divested and sold everything and went back to their core. So nothing is set in stone, not even in our ever-changing, disruptive logistic world, on which we have a lot of challenges coming from the outside, but we are always ready to face them and to try and make them into an opportunity for our sector. And that's one thing that I've tasted very much between your different subjects and your different speakers that you had. So we all have a big heart for our business and for our community, and it radiates off the screen, and it will radiate even more, Umberto, as you say, the moment that we will be able to meet again face to face, and we are greatly looking forward to that. So thank you all for your support on this.
So Gert, I would leave the final word to you, that you were with me, with Riccardo, the one who created this webinar. Gert.
Okay, thank you very much. I also wish to thank the Swiss speakers, Stefan, Jan, of course, and Roberta. So in fact, when you see this conference, you will see that in fact everybody is very well linked with Switzerland, because either it's the north of Italy or it's in Ticino. And I think everybody has his house in Ticino. I see Riccardo, you also have your office in Ticino. So in fact, it's almost a Swiss conference here. Something is happening. Oh yeah, it's okay. So I thank you very much, and I share with you all that we should very soon now go to the physical meetings. And I think the first one will be Liverpool, but in Italy, the first one is in Ravenna, or am I wrong?
No, it is. It's Ravenna, 19th to the 20th of May.
Yeah. Okay, so I hope I will meet you all there. I will definitely try to be there. Stefan, maybe you could also come. Okay.
And Jan, it would be a great opportunity for a haircut. Huh?
Yeah. Sorry. For the hair. Oh yeah. Good.
So thanks everybody.
Thank you, everybody, and waiting you in Chiasso, as Alberto said, is the connecting point between Italy and Switzerland. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Ciao. Ciao, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Bye.
See you
Bye.
soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye.